You just have to continue to show up. And that's when opportunities will pop up for you. You either cocoon yourself and feel depressed and sorry for yourself for the longest time, or you get out of bed and you do something about it. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I'm the real life example.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who named her first car Bubbles, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 61 of the Running for Real podcast. I am really thankful that you are here with me right now, and this is just going to be a great episode for you to enjoy, whether it is your first episode or your 61st episode. I really want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. I know you have a lot of options, and I'm really grateful for you being here. So last week we had Susan Latke on the show. That one was a little bit of a unique one, a bit different because Susan is deaf and I had to send in the questions ahead of time because for obvious reasons I could not interview her in the usual way that I would, which is through a Skype recording. So Susan took the questions to a recording studio, answered them for me, and I really hope you enjoyed that. I absolutely adore Susan. She is a great writer. Talked about her book last week, Life's Too Short to Go So Effing Slow. There was some colourful language in the episode, but if you are kind of into people who are going to inspire you, Susan is a great person to do that. So today I have Manal Rostom, who is breaking down all kinds of barriers all over the world for her work as a covered athlete. This is an incredible story about reaching out to the giant, untouchable Nike and not only getting a response and a change made because she suggested it, but it opened a lot more doors, including becoming a model for Nike, which is just incredible. She was brave, took a step towards making this world a better place, and is doing a lot of good work through her Surviving Hijab group, which is now huge. And I'm so glad we had this chat today. I hope you will enjoy it too. And I have sent Manal a Running for Real t-shirt, so I hope you will look out for it. And I'm hoping we will see her wearing it sometime soon if we haven't already. If you haven't already ordered your t-shirt or tank top, men's and women's performance tops, that is, I would love if you could show your support, show that you are a member of the Running for Real community, and go get yourself one. You can find those at tinamuir.com/shop or find the links in the show notes. Now, we're just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right to the episode. Thank you to Body Health for sponsoring this episode of Running for Real. You can save 10% at bodyhealth.com using coupon code TINA10 and join hundreds of other Running for Real listeners who have tried Perfect Amino and use it every day. And now I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited to pick your brain here and just learn from you. You are an inspiration to so many. And firstly, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having me. Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, this is going to be great. And, I don't know how many of our listeners will have heard of you just straight off the bat. They may have seen pictures of you, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But you are breaking barriers all over the place, being the first hijabi woman to be featured in an international Nike, depending on how we say it, campaign, which is incredible. We all know how difficult they can be to crack as a brand. And also the first Egyptian woman to run the Great Wall Marathon. Both amazing things to be a part of. But let's start with the Nike ad campaign. Did you approach them or did they approach you? It seems like Nike is just such a big, intimidating brand in a lot of ways. So how did that come about?
So I took pride in the fact that I was the one who contacted them. And as you put it, it is an intimidating brand, and they can't come off as too posh or whatever. But I contacted them in November 2015, and I had just founded a women's only closed Facebook group, to support women who wear the hijab, and I had called it Surviving Hijab, as like a counteracting everything that was taking place, in terms of women being banned from, swimming in pools that they wear bikinis, in the Western world. And, this is sad for me to say, but also in the Arab world, sometimes posh resorts, they don't allow, some hijabi women to swim or to even enter posh places or posh resorts or beach resorts or hotels. And, it just came out of a frustration. Like I wanted, to do something to help out my community. Because I was starting to get affected by all this, because it's always easy to go with the flow and just pick up your hijab and be like, you know what, if society's not accepting me, then I might as well just conform to what society wants to see, and you can just take it off. The group was booming. I had handpicked only 80 women by hand, from friends and family. Within the first couple of months, we hit 40,000 women from all around the world.
Wow.
And that sort of gave me a sort of a voice and confidence, self-confidence to realize that, you know what, I can perhaps make a change in the world if I want to, because the world will perhaps listen and will, confirm to changes that we want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. And that was my inspiration to contact Nike. So I got an email address of Coach Tom, which was the head of the coaches in Nike Middle East. And, it was just a simple email. I attached a photo of myself. I was like, look, I'm Egyptian, born and raised in the Gulf, grew up in international schools. I run, I do triathlons, I mountain climb. Nothing stops me from doing what I really want to do. And my question is, why isn't Nike featuring Muslim hijabi women in their campaign, especially in the Middle East? I would love to see someone who looks like me, who goes out on the street and runs, because you also need to see that sort of element of representation. And I sent the email, and honestly, I went to sleep straight away, and I was like, no one is going to read this. It's probably going to go to someone's junk email. And if it does go into someone's inbox, they're going to think, who's that crazy girl who thinks that she can impact, if even remotely, the marketing strategy of a huge and giant multinational company like Nike. So the following morning, I received an email from Coach Tom. It was exactly a one-liner. He's so concise, with the way he communicates in general. I love him. He's amazing. He's actually British, also. Okay. And he's got this British attitude towards it. I just love it. I love him. And he said, Manal, great idea. When can we meet? And honestly, when I saw that email, even though it hadn't really promised anything solid, but I felt like we had sparked a conversation, only a conversation, which is all that I wanted back then. I just wanted to let, sports companies know that people like me exist. And even if we're scarce or whatever, but I do exist. I want to see someone who looks like me, who can perhaps inspire the little Arab girls who grew up and they have nobody to look up to. I had nobody to look up to growing up as a teenager, Mm-hmm. So that was in November 2013. So in January 2013, I became the first ever hijabi model, to model for Nike. And then later on, based on my fitness certifications, they offered me the role of becoming a Nike trainer and a Nike Run Club coach. And of course, for me, I still pinch myself. I'm like, oh my God, this is actually real. Because it's a big deal. Yeah. You grew up with a huge brand like that. You look up to all these models and all the Nike trainers and the master trainers. And, you just think they don't look like you. They're beautiful, but, they don't look like you. And when will it ever be that someone like them can, be representative of your own culture? So for me, honestly, that was, I'm living a dream right now, being a Nike trainer, Nike Run Club coach. But then the magic happened when I was invited to the Nike headquarters in Portland, Oregon in July 2015 to represent the Middle East. And that's where, you go to the Disneyland of sports, basically. Yeah. as a child, you go to Disneyland and it's you're so overwhelmed with all the games and stuff. But for someone athletic and, to have been raised by the brand, etc., to go to the headquarters, it's a dream come true. And then in March 2017, when Nike went off and developed their hijab, I became the face of it. And I was involved in the testing of it after they designed it. Oh. So, we had inspired a company like that to cater for Muslim women. You know what I mean? And this is huge because a lot of other brands will come around and be like, oh, you know what? Why haven't we been doing this? And, I'm not Nike spokesperson or anything, but like, regardless of what Nike's intentions were, whether it's just, to make money or to really cater for Muslim women, because there was like a lashback, of course, when this happened. But like, it was a big deal, like Nike pioneered, the sports hijab for Muslim women around the world. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge deal.
Yeah. And I think actually, and there's so many things I could ask you based on what you just said right there. Absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for sharing. But I think it almost adds like a human element to Nike, because we kind of see them as this big kind of mean corporate giant who kind of, are untouchable. And like you said, you thought the email would never go through, but it kind of brings like a human element that they kind of essentially admitted, you know what, we're actually ignoring a huge % of the population and we need to do something about it right now. And like you said, maybe it was money related, but either way, they kind of took the initiative. They brought you out there and that's so cool. And what was it like, did you have to keep pinching yourself? Well, firstly, when they sent you the reply, but also when you got flown out there, like how did that feel knowing that, Nike of all running companies was after you?
When you ask me that question, like I keep getting goosebumps because it still feels surreal for me. Yeah. Being that hardcore athlete in love with sports, like my best shoes are always running shoes. I hate high heels as a girl, so to be placed in that position where finally I can walk around anytime, even if it's like a party and running, walking in shoes or showing up in, Nikes or whatever, because, I represent the brand now. So I have every right to do so. And I feel like it just completes me in a way or another. I don't know. Like when I went to the headquarters, well, okay, so let's just go back from the beginning. Like when the first photo shoot came out, like of course it caused a huge buzz around the Middle East, and it's like what? Like so Nike's featuring hijabis now. Well, she's wearing very tight tights, and this is not hijab. It's not appropriate for her to be running in tights like this. And I'm just like thinking, so you left the whole big picture and you're just focusing on something trivial, as in like whether my clothes are appropriate or not. Well, what do you expect me to be running in? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like when you deal with the success of it, you also have to deal with all the aspects and nasty things that people who don't know you, who don't know your story, who don't know your struggle, they sort of like throw stones at you. And as negative as it sounds, but it really, really hurts, even though you don't know these people, but like, you can't help but be curious and go to the comments on, photos that are released on the Nike webpage or whatever, and you read the comments, and some of the comments are just horrific. Yes. Just celebrate the fact that a company's finally addressing a minority, and Nike's all about tolerance, diversity, equality, and that's what they're standing up for. You need to give them credit for that. Mm-hmm. But it was just like, it was hard. It was hard. And then, they started putting up my pictures, around the Gulf. So, for example, my friends in Kuwait would take a photo of me or in a Nike store in Kuwait and send it to me. And I'm like, I can't believe I became that girl. Like, like the girls that you would look up to, on walls, as Nike posters or whatever, poster girls. And I became a poster girl just by having the courage to think that I can, create change. And I was brave enough, like you put it, to contact a giant company and just like ask them why not, Yeah. Yeah. So basically when I went to the Nike headquarters, to represent the Middle East, there's a story that I always like to share since we have a little bit of time, and which really reflects the kind of culture that Nike wants to create. Okay, so before we went there, we all had to fill in registration forms. And, a big question was, should there be any requirements? Please let us know. And this is just like a standard question, right? Like for me, I was like, okay, just in case they forget that I'm going to be the only hijabi trainer to show up, in a 500, people, it's a conference. It's a huge conference. It's a huge, Nike trainers flying in from all around the world. So I just put between brackets, if we need to stick to a certain, uniform or workout gear, whatever, I would like, full length tights and full length, tops, obviously because I cover. So, but then I was like, what, just in case, they forget or they misread that or they don't read that or miss it, take your own clothes with you. So I showed up to Portland, Oregon, and the first thing I saw was like, they gave us a bag of the gear that we were supposed to be, sticking to for like the 5 days that we were there. And it was all like just shorts and like cropped tights and tank tops and like, like short sleeves and stuff. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like, this is so embarrassing for me, to just like be the only hijabi, it's like that, in a convention this big. And I'm just like going to show up and say what? Like, I did put in the form. And I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I did my homework. I got my clothes. I'll just go to return it because anyway, I'm not going to use this clothes, right? Mm-hmm. So I went and I gave it to the registration girl, and I swear to God, Tina, like her face blushed so hard, and she was so apologetic. I was like, no, it's totally fine. It's totally okay. This stuff can happen. I'm just letting you know that I will not be using, this gear, so you can have it because I brought my own. And she's like, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't know how this happened. The following morning, I show up in my gear, and then, the same girl, she sees me walking across the Bo Jackson Field. It's the famous Bo Jackson Field with the swoosh on it. It's huge. I'll send you a photo. Maybe you can share it.
For sure.
So I know, she had a massive bag just full of, full length tights and, like full sleeve stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. She's like, we're very sorry. We did not mean to cause any inconvenience or embarrassment. Like, you think like another brand would be like, you know what, like this is a huge convention. She's the only person. You know what I mean? But they didn't do that.
That's the power of Nike right there. They all managed to get that stuff together.
Exactly.
Yeah. The way you're talking about this, it kind of almost reminds me of as if you were, a child growing up watching Disney movies. And, in the past, right, the early Disney movies were all these kind of like flawless, looked exactly the same, like, white girls who just, were all very much the same friendship group essentially. But then Disney kind of like expanded out and kind of started looking at different cultures and different backgrounds. And it's kind of like you've become a Disney princess. Like you've had essentially grown up watching Disney movies and you've become this Disney princess of your own. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Thank you.
And it's so
I just
cool.
feel like I became my own hero, like I just feel like, growing up, and having taken the decision to wear the hijab. And even though like I didn't grow up liking it, actually I grew up hating it so much. It was never forced upon me. It was my decision when I was 21. To put it on after like an accident that we had. And I just wanted to do something, I just want to be thankful to God for having given me, a second chance of life and a second chance of life injury free, after the accident. And, I just wanted to just say thank you to God. And I knew that it was going to be a hardship based on the kind of life that I wanted to live. Like I'm very athletic. I love the beach. I love swimming. I love water sports. And how will this all go with hijab? How? But somehow, you made it work for you, and you set these rules. And I'm so proud of that 21-year-old girl, who just like put her foot down and was like, you know what, if I can't find someone who looks like me, I'll perhaps work towards making that person, happen or come out. And she came out. She came out when I was 34, and I'm so proud because, honestly, a lot of people might not realize this, but my main objective, seriously, okay, forget the glamour and all the fame and everything of being the face of Nike, but it's the little girls, the little Arab girls who grow up with identity crisis like mine. Like I grew up in an international school, Arabic parents. I had no idea, who am I? Am I British? Am I Arabic? Who am I? So these little girls will see someone that looks like their parents and, they can identify with and relate to and still do all these, amazing, cool things. Absolutely.
And you have become that person. And do you have any did you have any moments where you have met maybe a little girl that you could share with us, or someone who's kind of said, been excited to meet you or something? Have you got any stories like that you could share?
So my group has exploded. Like we are 615,000 women from all around the world.
Amazing.
And just by the way, it's a non-profit making obviously group, and we just we're there to support each other. You don't have to be Muslim, to be honest. You don't have to be Arabic. You just have to support a woman's desire to look whichever way she wants to look. Like if you want to lie on the beach naked, if you want to lie on the beach in a bikini, if you want to lie on the beach in a bikini, that's totally your right. Nobody has a right to say anything to you as long as you're not hurting yourself or others. you're more than welcome to be in the group, So we have a lot of little girls who reach out to me on a weekly, daily basis, even sometimes. And, they ask me questions like, so I was banned from, playing basketball. So listen to this. So up until May 2017, the FIBA, so that's the International Federation of Basketball, used to ban Muslim hijabi athletes from participating in international championships if they wear the hijab. Wow. Please explain to me, how is this fair or just for a girl who's 20 years old, who's super amazing, super talented, who gets denied, participation in a championship that she's been dreaming about all her life, just because she wants to express her faith in a certain way? Yeah. How does that make sense to anyone?
Well, and especially last year, we're not talking about 20 years ago.
Exactly. Hello, it's like the 21st century. But thankfully, all this changed. So in May 2017, the FIBA lifted the ban on hijabi athletes. And actually, they used one of the announcements, used my photo from the Nike campaign to announce it. And for me, that's like, oh my God. Yeah. It's like, the biggest accomplishment of my life.
Yeah, you are doing so much. And I'm sure that you are a huge catalyst here in kind of getting things moving. And I hope you are, you have said you're proud of yourself, but I hope you realize the extent of it. I mean, maybe you won't kind of realize the extent for many years to come. It's only been a few years, but it is amazing. And, you've talked about this identity thing. You want to do this for the little girl. And Manal, I'm not sure how much you know of my story and what I kind of became known for. But when I kind of outed my story and talked about things, that was my intention as well. Little girls, I did not want other girls to go through what I did. I don't want to waste time talking about myself now, but, we can talk about it another time. But, you've talked about how in the past you struggled with, you didn't really have a sense of identity. You didn't, you were too scared to kind of dream big and think about something big, but then you went and did it. So, what would be your advice for others who are kind of in that situation that they think, I can't do anything like that. That's for, braver people. I'm not brave enough to do that. Or, like you said, wanting to, fit into the mold, kind of conform with everyone else. What would you say to people who maybe are in a situation where they have something unique that they want to change, but they've been scared to in the past?
Like, first of all, there will always be this small voice inside your head or in your gut or in your belly that is, that keeps nagging you to do something specific, like climb that mountain, run that race, sign up for the Ironman, go fishing somewhere, go jump off a cliff. Every one of us will always have this little voice inside that keeps nagging, and you will never be able to shut it up. The only way to shut it up is by going out there and getting that specific thing done. So, like, for example, growing up in my 20s, there will always, my parents would always be I was in love with mountain climbing. I had never tried it. I grew up in the desert, mind you. I didn't know anything about mountaineering, nothing, I just loved to run, like 5K, 2K, 3K, just around the house like that, or by the beach or whatever. And for me, that was just gold. But then I would watch people mountaineering and climbing, and I'd tell my dad, I would love to try that someday. And he'd look at me and be like, not because he's belittling me, but he was also brainwashed by society to think that hijabi girls or girls who cover or girls in general, should not be involved in any male-dominated sports. And I think, I'm sorry, but this is complete rubbish. Mm-hmm. It's just ideologies that society, oppresses us by. And because nobody stands up to ask the open question, well, why not? What's going to happen if I do? Be brave enough to put your foot down and have open conversations with anyone who belittles your ideas or your passion about anything. I would say to stay in your lane, whatever it is, wherever you're going. Do not ever hush or shush that voice, because this is your calling, and sooner or later it's going to catch up with you. And you just gotta, conform to that voice inside of you, not to society. And my only regrets, I know there shouldn't be any regrets, and I know that everything happens in time and everything, but my only regret is that I wasn't brave when I was 24 years old or 25 or 26. I plucked up all this courage when I was when I slowly entered my 30s. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I just feel if only I had started earlier, maybe I could have reached even, higher heights or greater achievements, but of course, never say if,
Yeah, well, and I think it's part of a process, isn't it? In your early 20s, like you said, you're still not sure who you are. But by the time, I'm a few months away from being 30, and I'm already I can see a difference in myself now, kind of well, who cares? I'm going to say what I think and be honest with myself, because what's the point in being anyone else? Whereas, like you said, in your 20s, your early 20s, you're going to be kind of still figuring out who you are. So I guess anyone listening who is in their 20s, listen to Manal's words here and, maybe consider being brave and standing up for something, because you don't want to end up regretting it.
Don't waste your 20s, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't waste your 20s. Like if you're 20-something year old and you're listening to me, I would do anything to go back to my early 20s, knowing what I know now and just like acting on it. If I had the just a little bit of vision to know that I would be capable of achieving every single little dream that I would ever, think of, like, who would have ever thought, that I would, buy choice, wear the hijab, and end up becoming Nike's first ever hijabi, or cover trainer and the face of the Nike hijab. Who would have ever thought? I still pinch myself. I'm like, wow, this is huge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Although,
so yeah.
You saying that, it's not exactly like you were just sitting around doing nothing. You were becoming and were a pharmacist, which is not exactly, taking the easy way out. You definitely made work for yourself, and you were doing something, very impressive anyway. But something I wanted to talk about, people can read up more about, your pharmacy career and things that you did. But you talked about, becoming made redundant in June 2016. And you really struggled again with that identity thing, which is something that many runners go through with sport. When we become injured or when we have to stop running, we really struggle to kind of remove ourselves from it. So what are your thoughts on why we do this to ourselves, making ourselves feel like we're nothing without that thing we do, rather than, who we are, the thing we do, like pharmacy or running? Why is it you think we struggle with that?
Okay, so I'm going to touch base on a couple of points here. So, first of all, when I lost my job in 2016, it felt more like a divorce, or as if someone had died, than just a mere loss of a job. Like, I was in bed crying, literally would not speak to anyone for 2 whole weeks, thinking that, my life has just crumbled on top of me. What am I going to do? Even though I was running sort of 2 careers, simultaneously, because I had a day job, 9 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever. And then, before work or after work, I was training in the gym or training people. So I was kind of living a dual life, which was fine. I was balancing it just fine. But, the redundancy hit me so hard. And I think, the reason why, and I'll tell you how I came up with that epiphany. I went on a yoga retreat for my 37th birthday. 37th birthday in October, right after I was made redundant. And I just wanted, to just reflect and disconnect, etc. And, I sat there with one of those big yoga gurus and stuff. And he said the problem is that we attach ourselves thinking that everything is going to last forever, And there's this book I also read when I was in Nepal, and it talks about when the chocolate runs out. You should not get attached to anything that tastes so good, because one day it will run out, say it a lover or even kids or everything. Even as hard as it is, but think of it this way, everything is going to go away, everything, nothing lasts forever. Our weight, our bodies, our skin, our hair, it's everything is going to go away, but we tend to, be focused on one thing as we take it for granted. And we don't plan, we don't put a plan B in place. And that's where everything gets messed up. Had I, got for example, back to your question about the running thing and injuries, because this is a devastating moment for anyone who runs or, is addicted to a certain sport. It's breaks their life. It's as if their life is over. Oh my God, I have a hip injury. I can't run for 2 or 3 months. Life is over. You're depressed, you gain weight, and you make life even miserable. So what have you put in place just in case running is not working out for you? Are you spinning? Are you taking spinning classes or indoor cycling? What's your plan B? And as humans, I think that we fail to plan for plan B because we're just too focused on what we have at hand. And that was my lesson, losing my job. I try not to get attached to anything. It's done something to my trust as well. I can't trust anything, just because it might just go away. And you just have to put a plan B in place. For athletes, this is the hardest thing ever. But again, always find like alternatives to give you that adrenaline dose or the adrenaline rush that we get from sports, you know? Like, for example, for me, like, because I try to save my legs for the big races and big international marathons, you know, so I get bullied all of the time. Like, oh, you know, there's a race this weekend. Why don't we do it? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I learned to say no and to listen to my body. You know, like if I don't feel like doing the race, I'm not going to do it. The point is, you know, to have a good race, not just to race, but to have a good race.
Yes,
you know, you don't want to end up feeling injured, you know, or you don't want to, you know, perform so badly in the race that you end up feeling miserable. And it's okay just to back off sometimes. I mean, there'll be plenty of other races. Always find alternatives to work out. I would say, like, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that advice. And I love that way of looking at things, because you're very, very right that we kind of live in this fairy world, or live with these rose-colored glasses where we think that, you know, it's not going to happen to us, or everything's going to be fine. We don't want to think about that. But you're right that it has to be that. And it could even be something as simple as, you know, making sure you have friends and family in place that you can go spend time with them if your running is kind of set aside, if that gives you the same kind of feel good feeling. So thank you for sharing that. That's great. And I just want to ask you a few more questions about kind of, you know, more specific things to you that people might be interested in. Now, you mentioned about, you know, you were part of the development process for the hijab that Nike made. So how did you kind of, what were some, I guess, maybe challenges or things you had to think about? Like, I would imagine, you know, heat becoming trapped inside would be a big thing, but what kind of things were they looking into?
I just want to clarify something. Yeah, I just want to clarify something. So Nike went off and developed the hijab on their own. Okay. So they were like, you know, designers who were based in Europe and the US who came out and designed it without any of us knew anything. Like, I never knew that Nike were working on a hijab even. But what happened was, like, when the final product was ready, you know, they sent it to the Middle East, to Dubai, you know, and they picked a few girls from around the region. And I was one of them, to test it out, you know, and just like give feedback before it's launched by a few months. Mm-hmm. So like in January, or I think in February, you know, we were started to get, and you know, when I saw it, I burst into tears. Like, honestly, that moment I will never, ever forget. Like, you know, when I was invited by the marketing director, former marketing director of Nike Middle East, and he said that he had something that was potentially going to change my life. Okay. And, you know, I always mentioned this, but I joked and I said, are you trying to hook me up with a guy? You know, and he's like, no, but it's something better. You won't believe what you're about to see. And, you know, they took out the Nike hijab, and I just burst into tears because, you know, wow, you know, we had come such a long way, and it was 2017, you know, so I had contacted Nike in 2014 with my crazy idea. Why aren't you featuring only a feature? I had only requested a feature just to see someone who looks like me. I never said, you know, can I be that girl? I never said that. So I become that girl, you know, who represents. And then Nike goes off and develops on their own, you know, by the consultation of whoever, you know, and a hijab that caters for Muslim women. And I get to test it firsthand and be the face of it, you know. Incredible. So the things that they were looking, you know, for, well, first of all, if you're running a marathon, like, I mean, you know, I run my marathons, like my fastest was 4 hours 20. It was in Muscat in Oman. But like, for example, the China Wall Marathon, I finished in like 6 hours something, because it was, oh my God, it was so hot, so long. It was like brutal. You know, you have to like go over 5,000 steps on the China Wall itself. You know, and then you run like a half marathon around the city, and then you go back. It was just brutal. So you want to be able to, and you're covered like from head to toe, and especially around the neck. If you don't have something appropriate, you know, you're going to feel like you're choking, you know, because it is very hot. It gets really hot. So what Nike did was they actually used the same material, the dry fit material that they used to make, you know, their dry fit t-shirts and dry fit tights, you know, that are suitable for running, you know, and they developed something that is a one piece, no need to wear pins, because pins can really annoy you, you know, and you wear it in just like a few seconds and you're off to go, literally, you know.
They did do a good job with it straight off the bat.
So, like, you know, obviously it's like, it's not perfect, you know, like nothing is perfect, like 100%. For example, like, you know, when I wear it, like, I feel like I'm about to scuba dive. because it just like sucks your head out so much, but that's fine. I debuted it in the NYC Marathon last November 2017. So like I ran an international marathon. I was the first person to run an international marathon in it. And I gave like, all the best feedback about it. Cause you don't feel like you're wearing anything on your head. And that's the best thing about it. Some girls come through and they're like, oh, well, but it keeps sliding. Well, you need to tie your hair. Like I have long hair. If I don't tie my hair properly and if it's soft, if you don't tie it properly underneath the hijab, no matter what hijab you wear, it will always slip, So you need to make sure that it's in a proper bun. It's properly tied in a tight bun, and you're just good to go. And if it slides slightly forward, just pull it back, Like I hated some of the most ridiculous comments were coming out, just like keep focus on the big picture. Yes. You have a dry fit material on your head, to be able to support you, whether it's for training or running. And I think it's amazing, and at the end of the day, you find you want to look great working out or whatever, but I also want to feel comfortable. Like I'd rather feel more comfortable than super amazing with my hijab, because it's the material of the hijab that will keep you going, not how fancy you look in your hijab. If I want to look fancy, fine, I'll just like toss a silk hijab or whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for explaining. I think there's a lot of things that maybe we don't know with that specific example, but there are many other things that we can all think about that we would any day choose comfort over, the way that you look. And as runners, that should be the most important thing. So they obviously did get it right. Just some people are a little bit too picky and kind of just, but I think some people just like complaining. So it's probably just put it down to that.
I think so. Thank you for the highlights one. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you said about the New York City Marathon being the first woman to run in it. Kind of making you a bit of a celebrity in your own right. Did you have a lot of people cheering for you along the way? Was it?
It was amazing. It was amazing because so I have family who live in Portland and Oregon, and they couldn't fly, to come and cheer on for me. And I was like, come on, this is my first ever international marathon, and I'm in the U.S. You have to make them, and they couldn't, And I was just like thinking, again, a New York marathon for me was a bit tough because the weather just turned and it became so cold and it started raining the whole way. I was running in rain I finished in 4 hours, 42 minutes. And it was I was hoping for 4:30. Because my pace was like people who were tracking me, they're like, oh my God, man, I was going to finish like in 4 hours. I was on fire. The first half marathon, like the first half, I was literally on fire. But then I started to slow down. I got stomach cramps. I was so cold, and I was like thinking, all of this is going to go to waste. No one's going to take my picture, crossing the finish line from my family, from my own family. No one is going to be waiting for me. But then, because I had posted on Surviving Hijab, my closed Facebook group, that I was going to be in New York, all the girls, who were in New York, there were about like 5 or 6 of them. I had never met them, didn't know them. They made these huge banners. And for me, honestly, Tina, it was just beautiful. They made these huge banners. And as I entered Central Park, and as I'm telling the story again, I'm getting goosebumps. But as I was entering, Central Park, and this is like the final stretch to the marathon, like dead. I was like completely dead. I just wanted to walk it. I still had, I think, like 3 miles. I was like, I'm done. Like, I just want to walk it right now and just chill in Central Park. But then, seeing that poster banner from complete unknown, human beings who came and stood in the rain just to cheer me, it was just life-changing. And I have photos, of course, to share. And it was just beautiful. It was really beautiful.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And New York is a very special place. I haven't run it myself, but I've heard incredible things about that marathon. So what a special one to do it at. Yeah. And one more thing I want to ask you about before we kind of wrap up here is you ran a 5K with Eliud Kipchoge. So for the listeners who have absolute crushes on him, he is like the coolest person ever. What was he like? Is he as nice as he seems?
Look, he's just like so normal. Like, he's just so down to earth. He's just like, we say the girl next door or whatever, but he's like the dude next door. He's just like so grounded. Yeah. If that fits his character and his soul, doesn't know how amazing he is. Of course, I couldn't keep up with him, because he was like on fire. And it was like, 2 days before the marathon, he wasn't running it, but he was just like came and, to pump up the runners and stuff in New York. And, I took selfies and he's so nice. I'm just so touched by how humble, celebrities like this, and it teaches you, and it teaches you that no matter what happens, you need to remember that we're all equal, we're all the same. We need to stay grounded. Nothing lasts forever, and just be kind and nice to everyone.
So true. Love that. And he is definitely the person more than anyone that I've heard is like that and inspiring in a way of just, like you said, being humble. But it's great to hear it from you who actually, got that time with him. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And just one more thing before we get to the Running for Real 4. You are trying to be the first Egyptian woman to scale Mount Everest. So tell us how that's going.
Okay, so basically, this dream keeps going back and forth, and it's driving me crazy because last year, right after I lost my job, I was scheduled to go to Everest Base Camp, and I did, and I was leading a group of 6 people, I think it was, with an Egyptian adventure company, and we all made it. And when I came down, when I returned to Kathmandu, and I was like, this is it, this is a confirmation for me that I really want to do Everest, because Nepal is amazing. The people are amazing. The temples are amazing. This whole Buddhism spirit is just, it's so heartwarming. And I just came down. I was like, this is it. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I want to be the first Egyptian woman to climb Everest. And then shortly after that, I was scouted by Chevy, on Instagram, and they were just looking for someone to be trained for a big dream. And, they sponsored my mountaineering alpine training in the U.S. So they sent me to California. And again, it just happened out of the blue. Like, I was like, what? Like, how did you find me? And then they sent me to attempt the second highest mountain in the world as a part of the training. They weren't ever going to sponsor, but I was hoping that if I had, been able to climb Aconcagua, that I would come down and be ready for Everest. But unfortunately, we got hit by a massive snowstorm on Aconcagua, which is the second highest mountain in the world and one of the 7 summits outside the Himalayas, of course. It stands at 6,900 meters above sea level. And we got hit by a snowstorm at 5,600 meters, which is quite high because if you're not into mountaineering, let me just explain to you how high we were. When I was 3 days away from the summit. Okay, so that's really nasty. To turn around when you're 3 days away from the summit, it's brutal. You've been climbing for 10 days, you're away from home, there's no internet, you're not speaking to family, you haven't showered in days. It's brutal. Yeah. 5,600 is around the highest mountain in Europe, which is Elbrus. Which stands at 5,642 meters above sea level,
Yeah.
So I came down and then, the dream sort of faded away because I just felt very discouraged from this whole mountaineering thing because at the end of the day, I couldn't summit. So I was so scared. And then I thought, I'm going to take a break. Plus I couldn't find sponsors. Every single, mountaineer who's done it got major sponsors because it's quite expensive. Yeah. And nobody wants to put their own money, even if you have it. My dad doesn't want to pay for it. It costs around between $60,000 to $100,000. Wow. My dad is like, I'm not going to give you that money. I was like, come on, you saved all your life, just give me the money. And he's like, no way. I'm not going to give you the money to go die. I'm like, well, if you don't give me the money, maybe a sponsor is going to give it to me. And then he's just like, at the end of the conversation. Currently, I'm still looking for sponsors. It's kind of looking bright. I just can't say anything at the moment, but who knows? Maybe for 2019, 2020. I don't know, but the dream is still there. Whether I will be the first or the last or the second or the third, the dream is still there, and I'd love to represent my country in something that big,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an important point. You have said a lot about how you've kind of set your mind to something, you've gone after it and you've got it kind of, just for asking essentially. And I think often, that people like you and maybe myself who may appear to have this life where you get things all the time and you're very lucky. Just because, you can't get there straight away, it doesn't mean it goes away. And, I keep
it's hard work more than luck.
For sure.
It's a little bit of luck, but a lot of hustle, a lot of hustle. I don't rest, I'm always talking to people. I'm always showing up. You just have to continue to show up. and that's when opportunities will pop up for you. And that's something I learned after I lost my job. Like, you either cocoon yourself and feel depressed and sorry for yourself for the longest time, or you get out of bed and you do something about it. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I'm the real life example. Like, I'm currently, still on my feet, still driving the car that I was, the posh car that I was driving when I had, my posh job with pharmaceuticals. I'm still in my apartment. Nothing changes because I hustle and I work very hard to stay on my feet, and my dad is not helping me out. He's not sending me money because, they live between Kuwait and Egypt. And I'm still in the UAE. Like, fine, I lost my job, but I made things work for me because I hustled and I hustled hard. And everyone was like, "Oh no, you just got lucky because you're doing this." No, it's a combination, but it's definitely a lot of hustle.
For sure. Thank you so much for clearing that up, because I think that is kind of a common misconception, and it is good to hear you say that it isn't just things fall in your lap, you work for them, as you said. So thank you so much, Manal. Yeah. We are just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be back with the Running for Real 4. Summer is finally approaching after an endless winter, and for many of us, that means we have to get our runs in before that burning sun starts to beat down on our head, which means early starts, and early starts can mean we don't always get a chance to have a proper breakfast before our runs, although I would recommend you have something. Starting the day on a deficit means you have to catch up on fueling if you want to perform at your best, and that's where Body Health Perfect Amino can come in. If you take it immediately following those summer morning runs, or any time you finish your run, and give your body the kickstart it needs to start repairing those muscles after you run, that gives you 23 minutes while it digests or while it begins to be utilized by your body to stretch, foam roll, shower while it works its magic, and then you can have your breakfast or have your meal and get on with your day, knowing that you've given your body those essential 8 amino acids that your body needs to support and maintain all your systems. Body Health is a vegan-sourced, non-GMO, gluten-free, soy and dairy-free product. And guess what? They have a 100% money-back guarantee, so you have absolutely nothing to lose by giving it a try. By now, you know I believe in it, and you should too. You can get 10% off using code TINA10 at bodyhealth.com. All right, Manal, just 4 more questions for you, starting with a unique nutrition tip or something that you use before you run.
It's just banana and coffee and oatmeal. I don't have anything else really. No? Yeah.
Keep it simple. That's the best way to be in a lot of lights. What about a running for real moment? A moment that only runners will understand that has happened to you?
It's just like the epiphanies that you come out with, after a good run. Like, you have a problem, or you have, a decision that you really need to take, and only a good run can help you make that decision, and only runners will get that.
For sure. That is a good one, and I don't think anyone has ever actually mentioned that, so cool, thank you. And what about a high moment for you in your running?
In running or in general?
Either one.
A high moment in running. I don't know, like when I run into the guy I like, or like like my crush or something when I'm running, that's always like a high moment. It's like, you see me in action and it feels good,
Yeah, for sure. That's a unique one. I like that very much. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're on the start line of a race?
I just really, focus, because I always run with my Egyptian flag. So I just, keep imagining, running into the finish line with my Egyptian flag and what that will mean for my people. Because, running is not a big sport in Egypt. So, I could be like one of the fewest, who are like, hardcore marathoners. So I just would like to place Egypt on the map, because, for example, when I was running in New York, like, when I was running in the streets with my flag, most people actually didn't know it, and that hurt. Because, like, for example, when you take out the, British flag or the American flag, everyone recognizes it. But, like, why can't everyone, like, recognize where I'm from?
Very true. Very true. Well, you're doing your part, more than your part, to get Egypt out there. So thank you for doing that. And that is absolutely wonderful. Okay, well, Manal, how can people find out more about you? You mentioned your Facebook group, Surviving Hijab. I will put links to everything you talk about in the show notes, but where can people find you?
So I'm very, very active on Instagram. I respond to everyone. So it's at Manal Rostom. It's just my nickname and then my last name. And I just want to put it out there that if anybody, of course, females only, because the group is only for females. Again, I emphasize on the fact that it's not for It's not for Muslim women only or women who cover. We welcome everyone from every single culture just to, learn more about, hijabi women or just women who want to stay modest. And I just want to create like this tolerant environment in the world. And I think we're doing well with like 615,000 women on there.
Sure. That is amazing. And I will put links to your Instagram, your Facebook, and any other social media handles that you have, just for listeners to go find you.
Just my Facebook page, which directly links to my Instagram, is fine. I mean, I'm more active on Instagram anyway.
Okay, perfect. All right, Manal, thank you so much for this. This has been so interesting. I really appreciate it, and I know the listeners are going to love it.
Thank you.
Isn't she wonderful, brave, bold, and making an effort to make this world a better place? It really makes you think about what you can do for your part. And I'd love to hear what you're passionate about and what you're going to do to help, support that thing that you are passionate about. You can let me know through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course, in the Running for Real Superstars community. I really would love to hear what you want to do to make a difference in this world. You can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 61. And if you have been enjoying these episodes, can I please ask you a favor that you share it with your friends, share the show notes or the episode page, tell them about the podcast, show them how to find it, as I know podcasts can be quite confusing for those people who, haven't used a podcast before. Tag me in posts. All of that helps to show me how much you appreciate the show and helps others to find the show. And also leaving me a review on iTunes will go a long way if you have the time. Next week, we are going to be talking to Shao Smith, who is a 71-year-old wonder who ran 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents for her 70th. Yes, you didn't mishear that. I did say 70th birthday. You are going to love her story, and I guarantee you are going to want to be like Shao when you grow up. Just amazing story. Until then, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.